I booked the Airbnb last minute. A single night's stay in a quiet, secluded house, perfect for getting some rest before my early morning meeting. The listing had all the right buzzwords: cozy, well-kept, peaceful. The reviews were glowing. When I arrived, the house was exactly as described, charming in an old-fashioned way. The wooden floors creaked under my shoes with a sound that echoed a little too loudly in the still air, and the furniture looked like something out of a grandmother's home. Heavy and ornate, but it was clean and comfortable. The air, though fresh, carried a faint, almost metallic scent I couldn't quite place, subtly off. The host, Daniel, had left a welcome note on the kitchen counter, along with a guest book where past visitors had left handwritten entries. Curious, I flipped through it while eating a quick dinner. The first few pages were the usual pleasantries. Guests praised Daniel's hospitality, the peaceful atmosphere, the comfortable bed. But as I went further back, something changed. Lovely stay, but heard knocking at night, didn't check, probably just the wind. Knocking again, midnight, creepy, didn't answer. Then one entry stopped me cold. If you hear knocking after midnight, do not answer. They always try the newest guest first. I set the book down, the cheerful welcome note suddenly feeling thin and false. I became acutely aware of how quiet the house was, a silence that pressed in on my ears. The only sound was the unnervingly steady ticking of an old clock on the living room wall, each tick a small sharp hammer blow in the stillness. Shaking it off, telling myself it was just overactive imagination fueled by travel exhaustion, I locked the doors, checked the windows, and went to bed. Just past midnight, I woke up. Not to a sound, but to a sensation, a deep, low vibration that seemed to hum beneath the floorboards. Then I heard it. Knock, knock, knock. Soft, yet resonant. Rhythmic, deliberate. It wasn't just sound, it was a pressure against the silence, a physical presence. I lay frozen, breath catching in my throat, listening with every nerve ending. It wasn't coming from the front door, it was inside somehow, deeper in the house. The hall. My heart slammed against my ribs, a frantic bird trapped in my chest. I sat up slowly, each movement feeling amplified in the profound quiet, and crept toward the bedroom door. My fingers, clammy with sweat, hovered over the cold brass doorknob. I pressed my ear against the aged wood, straining to hear past the frantic thrum of my pulse in my ears. Silence. Utter, absolute silence. The ticking clock seemed to have stopped, the house holding its breath along with me. I exhaled a shaky breath, trying to dispel the rising panic. Maybe I had imagined it. Maybe a single knock, louder this time, closer, right outside the bedroom door. Knock. I jerked back from the door as if burned, stumbling backward. Every hair on my arms stood on end. Terror, cold and sharp, pierced through my attempt at rational thought. I dropped to my knees, craning my neck to peek under the door. A thin sliver of dim hallway light stretched across the wooden floorboards. Empty. No shifting shadows. No movement. My pulse pounded in my ears, deafening, as I backed away further, forcing myself to breathe, slow, shallow breaths. The house was silent again, a deceptive, predatory silence. But I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I huddled under the covers, muscles tense, mind racing, until dawn began to bleed gray light through the window cracks. The knocking stopped after a while, fading into the silence, but the unease lingered, heavier now, colder, a suffocating weight in the room. By morning, I had my bag packed before the sun fully rose, driven by a desperate urge to escape. I decided, against my better judgment, to leave an entry in the guest book before heading out. A brief, dismissive note, trying to reclaim some semblance of normalcy. Flipping to the last page, pen in hand, I froze. There, in handwriting identical to mine, was an entry I never wrote, penned in neat, unwavering strokes. Stayed one night. Heard knocking. No one there. Didn't answer. Leaving first thing in the morning. If you're reading this, they know you're here now. My blood turned ice cold. A glacial freeze spreading through my veins. The pen slipped from my numb fingers, clattering uselessly on the nightstand. A car pulled up outside, crunching on the gravel driveway. Daniel. He stepped out, smiling, too brightly, as he waved, that unnervingly cheerful wave. I forced myself to act normal, every muscle screaming in protest, as I carried my bag to my car, my movements stiff and unnatural. "Hope you had a good stay," he said cheerfully, his voice too loud in the quiet morning air, his smile too wide, too fixed. His eyes flicked ever so briefly toward the house before meeting mine again. "Did you sleep well?" I swallowed, forcing a nod. "Yeah." My voice came out hoarse, a bare whisper. "Great place." His gaze lingered, expectant. It wasn't just small talk. It was a question with weight. And then, almost too casually, he added, "You didn't hear anything last night, did you?" A sharp, cold dread ran through me, a visceral jolt of icy terror. He asked as if he already knew the answer. I forced out a shaky laugh, shaking my head. "Nope, slept like a rock." Daniel's smile widened almost imperceptibly, just a slight tightening around his eyes, a hint of something sharp and knowing beneath the surface pleasantries. I couldn't meet his gaze, couldn't bear to see whatever was reflected there. I muttered a quick, choked goodbye and practically dove into my car, slamming the door shut and starting the engine with trembling hands, driving away faster, harder than I meant to, tires spitting gravel as I fled. My thoughts raced, a frantic, dizzying swirl. How did he know about the knocking? He hadn't asked about my stay in general. He asked about the asterisk noise. Asterisk, flipping through everything in my head, the guest book warnings, the knocking that moved inside the house, Daniel's unsettling cheerfulness and knowing smile, I realized something else, something that made the dread deepen into a suffocating certainty. The guest book always ended with warnings, chilling advice for future guests. No one ever wrote about staying a second night. Did they leave? Or did they just stop writing? As I drove farther and farther from the house, putting as much distance as possible between myself and that unnerving smile, I checked the Airbnb listing again, compulsively refreshing the page. A new review had just been posted, appearing as if from nowhere, nestled amongst the older, glowing praise. "Great place. Cozy, well kept, perfect for a peaceful stay." No mention of the knocking. No mention of anything strange at all. Just bland, generic praise, like a cover-up. Somewhere back at that house, Daniel was waiting, smiling, for the next guest, and I knew, with a cold certainty that went beyond reason, that whoever, whatever, had written in that book in my hand was waiting too.